Welcome to the Detroit Lions Morning Rounds podcast. I'm Jimmy Liao, University of Michigan Medical School graduate, lifelong Lions fan, talking about COVID, the NFL, the Detroit Lions, and other medical issues. Let's talk about Game 3 for the Lions. Finally got a win, which was essential. If a team can stay in that 500 range, close to 500, they'll be playing meaningful games into December. So it was great to see the Lions get to 1-2. However, there were still many concerning issues during the game. First, let's talk about injuries and medical issues. There was breaking news today with the Titans having 3 players testing positive for COVID, as well as 5 staff members. We'll talk about this on another podcast, but they've had to shut down the facility for a few days. Fortunately, no COVID cases for the Lions during the season so far, so good news there. Previous week, there were ACL tears surging in week 2. This week, the ACL tears dropped down to a baseline level. There were no ACL tears for the Lions this week or even the entire season. So far, still the only major season-ending tear was the Achilles tear to Jashon Cornell. The total NFL count for ACL tears currently is 22. After last week, it was 19, so it only jumped 3 for this week. Now, go back to episode 5 when I talk more about the ACL surge rate initially during the season. I had predicted that there'd be an initial surge in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the regular season compared to previous years, which had a preseason. Well, we saw the surge in week 2. Week 3, things have declined to baseline, which is a good sign for teams across the league. We've probably gotten past that initial surge of ACLs. Historically, up to 60% of ACL tears occur before the regular season. That was true in 2017 and 2018. In 2019, there was a slight anomaly. 40% of ACL tears occurred prior to the regular season. But typically about 50 to 60% occur prior to the regular season. So currently we're into week 3. We've passed week 3, which was the concerning initial stage of the season when we might see a high rate of ACL tears. Fortunately, at this point, we should be at a baseline level going forward. Let's talk about Kenny Golladay, whose hamstring looked good. He missed the first 2 weeks. Week 3, he played 49 snaps, which was 73% of offensive snaps. The only receiver snapping more than him was Marvin Jones at 91%. So Kenny Golladay had a big workload. He looked fine out there. He didn't look like he had a setback. That's one of the major concerns with the hamstring is it's easy to restrain it. So getting through this first game or 2 without restraining it will be a really good sign. Desmond Trufant is still out. He missed the game again. He's been out since week 1 when he hurt his hamstring. So this is 2 games he's missed. He's not on IR, which means he could return next week. Justin Coleman is on IR with a hamstring strain. He looked to have a pretty severe strain. He had to get helped off the field. Hopefully it's only an isolated hamstring strain and not some other knee issue in addition. Based on how he looked coming off the field, I would not be optimistic seeing him in the next month. It might be a 6 to 8 week injury for him. Jamal Agnew, who had the worst play of game 2, which was not knowing the rule about calling for fair catch and then blocking. Well, he redeemed himself somewhat. This game had some real good returns. He looks like a spark plug out there and really dangerous on returns. Unfortunately, it took our defense 3 quarters before they could even force a punt. But once they did, Agnew was able to break off a nice return. However, you saw later in the game when the Cardinals were punting towards the Lions' end zone and it was going to be a kick into the 20, into the red zone area, they did not have Jamal Agnew back there. They had Danny Amendola back there fielding the punt. So there seems to be still some concern as far as Jamal Agnew's decision-making backed up against his goal line. The player of the game was Jamie Collins, who initially caused an interception with a rush up the middle. We saw this last week as well when he sacked Aaron Rodgers with a rush up the middle. So this is looking like a good thing for the Lions. Jamie Collins also got an interception later in the game, so he was directly responsible for 2 turnovers in this game. Matthew Stafford had an okay game, but not great. He had a bunch of bad overthrows and missed throws in the red zone. Specifically, there were 2 bad overthrows in the third quarter near the goal line, where he could have dropped in a bucket, could have put it on the receiver, gave the receiver a chance to make a play, but just missed the guys. And that's a crucial time of the game where you need to try to extend the lead. The Lions have had trouble in the second half of games over the past year to 2. And we need Stafford to be a gunslinger, to really make great passes in the second half to maintain our lead and not have these comebacks occur against us. The Lions were only 2 for 5 in the red zone deep into the fourth quarter. So that's really not good enough, and that does fall a lot on Stafford. However, Stafford really made up for it in the final drive, which is an amazing, excellent final drive. His best throw of the season was a deep throw to Marvin Hall, which was wiped out by a penalty. This is what I've been wanting to see from Stafford the whole season, which is to drop some balls into a bucket, really give his receiver a chance to make a play on balls. We saw that earlier in the game with Kyler Murray, who had a fantastic throw into the end zone and just dropped into the receiver's hands, and there was nothing a defender could do about it. Well, Stafford did the same thing with Marvin Hall. Unfortunately, that was wiped out due to a penalty. There was a concern that this was going to be a bad sign. The Lions would not be able to overcome that penalty, but they did. So let's talk about my favorite play of the game. Let's set it up. It occurs on the final drive. It occurs on the second down. Let's talk about what happened on first down. It was 1st and 10 at the Arizona 38-yard line. So they're already in Prater's field goal range. He could kick a 55-yard field goal if they don't get any more yardage at this point. And I was fully expecting the Lions to play conservatively, play passively on offense, which is their modus operandi over the second halves of games lately. Well, on first down, they ran Adrian Peterson up the middle for no gain, as expected. Arizona calls a timeout with 58 seconds left. The Lions could run it again the next 2 plays and run the clock basically down to just a few seconds left and have Prater go for a 50-plus yard field goal. However, here's where my favorite play of the game occurs. 2nd down and 10 at the Arizona 38. Stafford throws a pass to the right side to Marvin Jones, which was a tough pass. If he's a little late on that pass or throws it behind him, that could get picked off. That could be a pick 6. But he throws a perfect pass to Marvin Jones, who's able to turn it up for 20 yards, putting the Lions well within comfortable field goal range. That was an aggressive throw by Stafford. That was an aggressive play call by Darrell Bevell. We don't know why the Lions have been playing so passively in the second halves in the past, whether it's Bevell or Stafford. We don't know, but both of them have to be more aggressive, and this was a perfect example of them both being aggressive and making a game-changing, game-deciding play. I'd love to see that. Let's talk about Jeff Okudah, who struggled most of the game. He was giving up way too much cushion on a lot of the DeAndre Hopkins catches. He was backing off 10, 15 yards, allowing Kyler Murray to make just really easy passes. That was not great to see. You really want to see your number 3 overall pick cornerback be able to stick to a guy a lot closer. However, he did have a fantastic interception later in the game. He had a good closing burst and made a diving interception, which was a playmaking play. That was great to see. Now, one of the concerns after the game with Okudah was that he was looking back for a certain ball that Kyler Murray threw down the sideline to Hopkins. When he looked back, Hopkins got past him and caught it over his head. Some people have an issue with him looking back for the ball. I have zero issue with that. I want a cornerback to look back for the ball, even if that means he gets beat occasionally because of it. Looking back allows him to intercept the ball if there's a bad throw, an underthrow. And that's what causes quarterbacks to be scared to throw in his direction. The best cornerback I've ever seen in my life is Deion Sanders. And it wasn't just because he was a good coverage guy. It was because he had great hands, he looked back for the ball, and if he ever caught the ball, there was like a 50% chance he was going to take it to the house because his return ability was so great. So you want your cornerback looking back for the ball, even if that means he occasionally gives up a pass over his head. We've seen Nevin Lawson, who was a very athletic cornerback, who was able to stick with his man, but never looked back for the ball, did not have good hands, and quarterbacks had no fear of throwing it in his direction, even if he was draped all over his man. They would give their receiver a chance to make a play or get a pass interference call because Nevin Lawson posed no threat to intercept the ball. So I like that Jeff Okudah is looking back for the ball, posing a threat for interception. Let's move on to Adrian Peterson, who right out of the gate had an amazing run with this incredible spin move. Didn't think he could do it at 35 years of age, but he did it. However, the rest of the game, he was pretty pedestrian. He finished the game 22 carries for 75 yards, which is only 3.4 yards per carry. Kerryon Johnson only had 3 carries that game, and Swift had none. I still don't like seeing Adrian Peterson get the vast majority of carries, especially since he was not that productive. I want to see more carries go to Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift, both second-round picks. DeAndre Swift was a high second-round pick who should be getting the bulk of the carries, in my opinion. So I want to see the coaches get him ready to play and play him because he's a guy who can change the game for us. Adrian Peterson is a stopgap, and he had a great first game, but has not been that great since then. Well, let's talk about the Lions' aggressiveness as far as play calling. There was a Warren Sharp tweet looking at the stats of this. They were 50-50 run pass on first half first downs and averaged 11.7 yards per attempt on their passes with a 71% passing success rate. In the second half, the Lions ran the ball on 11 of 15 first downs and only averaged 1.5 yards for 18% success on their runs. So the Lions are running the ball too much on first downs in the second half. They did a good job early in the game setting up that they're likely going to run the ball on first down. However, the benefit of setting up the run early is that in the second half, you can mix it up and throw play action into it and get some chunk plays down the field. But they weren't doing that. So I really want to see the Lions do a lot more play action on first down, even in the first half. This is a team whose strength is the passing game and Stafford. I would not be upset if they passed the ball on 80% of first downs until the defense is fully expecting passes, and then at that point start integrating more runs into it and creating some productive running plays. I am tired of seeing Adrian Peterson or any of our running backs getting stuffed for 0 yards or -1 or -2 yards on first down and just ruining drives because of it. All right, so that's my recap of the game. Thanks for listening.